Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish.
All right, so let's get to it. Today, we're going to be talking about being confident and convicted. Let's change that. We're going to talk about conviction leading to confidence, because that's really what this is all about. And how often do we really talk about conviction, right? You know, there's two kinds of convictions, duh. I mean, I know that you know this. Conviction is a formal declaration of a judge saying, you're guilty. Put him in cuffs, take him off to jail, you know? And it's not cute little jewelry cuffs. No, these are not cuffs of your own choosing. These are cuffs from the court, taking you away, booking you into prison, putting you under a sentence. And unfortunately, what happens with us is when we don't heed our own conviction, we create a conviction. You get that? If we don't heed our own conviction, we will get a conviction. We will be handed a sentence. That's big stuff. And that is one of the reasons why I want to be talking about this, because so often what happens is, you know, maybe we've got our little quote deck, you know, and we've got a little cosmic 2x4 happening, sitting there on our little stands, and we're going, oh, that's just a cosmic 2x4. Well, what are you going to do about it? How's that going to affect your life? How are you going to apply this principle? Because conviction, also the second one, of course, is it gives you the freedom to live a different life if you address the conviction in the first place. So, for example, let's say you go to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, you stay on this path, you're on your way to fill in the blank chronic disease. You got to do this, you got to do that, you got to figure this stuff out. And you got, and you know, talk to a nutritionist, talk to do this and do that. And so many times, and I've heard this because I've done the coaching, how confused they are and just like, well, what do I do? And then I watched a documentary a while ago, and I'm telling you, the food these people were eating, and they were doing it all in the name of being healthy. And it's like they had some, you know, low fat, healthy cracker crap in a box, you know, those are the things, right? They had all these different, because they didn't know. And when we don't know better, we can't do better. But I will tell you this, that if you are living with, under, and about conviction, things shift. When you make a decision that this is no longer what you want, I no longer want to have blood tests that look like this. I no longer want to feel like this in my own body. I no longer want this pain. I no longer want to be fearful of not being able to get on a ride with my kid at the amusement park. Whatever it is, when it becomes a conviction, it becomes something that is such a firmly held belief that you don't move from it. It's religion, it's politics, it's food, for heaven's sakes. People are like that about food. It's even health. You know, we see this all the time, and there's a lot of very opinionated people, and everybody comes to the place and says, it's all based on science. And yes, of course, you know, we do believe a lot of our own, you know, of course we do. We all have confirmation bias too, don't we? I mean, that's just the way we all roll. All of us. Nobody's immune. Nobody. But you know what I want to say about that? Who you are is who you stand up and say that you are and then do. Right? That's who you are. And if you're doing it under conviction, nobody can take that away from you. I'm sure you've seen, you know, where vegans, like these very, very convicted vegans who are throwing, you know, buckets of blood on celebrities who they think are wearing fur or something. You know, you've seen that. they do things like that and chain themselves to trees that won't get cut down. And these are environmentalists, but these people are all living under a very serious conviction. This is how they roll. Now you can say that, well, that's not right. You can say, I don't think so. You can say whatever you want to say about it. It's not your conviction though, is it? And unless it affects you, of course, we are all like that. I mean, I think having a violent act of throwing paint on somebody it's terrible. But they're entitled to their conviction. That doesn't necessarily mean they're entitled to their action. They're entitled to their conviction though. And when we live under conviction, we see the need to change, don't we? We see the need to change something. Sarah just said conviction is the needle mover for people who know better but aren't doing better. It's true. It's true, because there comes a time. We all have a reckoning. We all have a time of reckoning where we're sitting across from the doctor, or where we get a photograph and we're saying, that's not me. Yeah, it is. We all get something. We see something, or something moves us just a little bit and makes us see something a little bit different. The perspective has changed because the conviction changed. And conviction is absolutely critical and absolutely important when you make a decision to do something that you have the ability to stand on. The reason why is because there's a lot connected to it. It's your brain, it's your emotions, it's your heart. It becomes for some a mission. It becomes for some like, this is the only way out. This is the only thing that we can do. But here's the thing. When we lack conviction, what do we lack? A lot of times we lack belief, morals even, lack of a moral compass. We lack aspiration, faith. That's what happens when we don't live when we don't live in conviction and with our own conviction and whatever the conviction needs to be. And I know this, and you know it as well, that my butt is lit on fire when I get convicted about something. So does yours. We all do. We all have that way. And think about Scarlett O'Hara, I'll never go hungry again. Conviction. And she was going to do anything and everything in her power to never be in that same place again. Why? She's convicted that she doesn't have to do that if she can figure it out, because everything is highly figure outable. That was Scarlett O'Hara, and this is integrity. This is what integrity looks like, is when you live by your convictions, which doesn't mean that sometimes they shift and change. You might be convicted that if I could just get my calories below a certain point, blah, 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 then I'm going to lose weight. That's my conviction. This is what it is. And you're on blogs and everything, and you're telling everybody, you got to eat in a calorie deficit. And then suddenly you get a little bit of a different education. You get a little bit more of an education. You start reading the studies and you read, well, it's not just about calories. And you figure out a little bit more, and your conviction shifts. It has to. You have more information. You have better information. You have all the things that you need in order to make a better conclusion, right? We all do this. And you know what this is? This is living like you mean it. That's what conviction does. Living like you mean it. You got one shot. You're going to hear me say that over and over again. One shot. This is one life. It's yours. What are you going to do with it? One shot. And the conviction that you have to live it fully and to leave it all out on the dance floor when you finally get onto the other side of glory, well, it's how you live your life. It's what you choose to do. It's who you choose to hang out with. Thomas Carlyle said conviction is worthless unless it's converted into conduct. Let me read that again, because this is an important one. Sarah, you know this, right? Sarah knows. Hey, if she says it twice, you know. Thomas Carlyle, this is the quote. Conviction is worthless unless it's converted into action. A lot of us like to flap our gums. We all do. We all do. But what are we doing about it? Are we, trolls on social media and saying, well, I believe blah, blah, blah. Are we actually doing something? We're going to go protest whatever and actually do something, or get on the phone and start calling people. It's wonderful to have a conviction, but something behind it needs to propel it into action. That's how we change things. And you know what conviction also leads to? When we stand behind what it is that we believe and we do the things that we believe that strongly, that leads to a massive amount of confidence. Have you noticed that? Confidence comes by what you do. It doesn't just show up. That there's a lot of people who say, well, I lack confidence, so I can't fill in the blank. And the problem is it's, cart before the horse. You got to change it around. You just got to go out there and do it and see what happens. You will get confidence. And I'm going to tell you, I've told you this story before, but it's a good one. It's a doozy. But I was in the 80s, newly married, and I had this beater of a car, and it was filled with all the crap that I had as being a title rep, and I was wanting a new car and everything. And I told my boss, if I could do a certain amount of business, could he possibly get me a new car? Because we couldn't possibly get it. We just bought our first house. We didn't have any money. But I knew that the company had cars, that they gave their salespeople cars, just not in my state. But I knew that if I were to do what I said that I was going to do and negotiate this, I could possibly get a car. And don't you know, I did exactly. He said, well, if you can hit XYZ numbers, we'll get you a car. They got me a car. It shows you what happens when you make a decision to do something. I was convicted that I could do this. I knew I could do this. And he set high numbers, by the way. But I also knew what was riding on it. And what was riding on it was my own personal integrity and my dignity, for heaven's sakes, because I said, you betcha, I'm going to do this. You watch. That was number one. And number two was that I knew that if I put my mind to it, that this could be mine, that I could have that car. And do you know, this is all before any of this stuff started happening. I would go to bed at night and I would think about the new car. My car was a beater. It was held together with, I don't even remember what it was, like an old Toyota. I bought it because I could afford it, and it smelled like cigarettes. I didn't smoke. It smelled like, it was just filthy and awful. There was nothing you could do. And it was embarrassing if somebody had seen me come out, if I was going to a bank, which is who I used to call on, I'd go to a bank getting out in my high heels and pantyhose, and I'm getting out of this horrible little beater car. I didn't want anybody to see that. So yes, ma'am, that's exactly what I did. I set my intention. When you set your intention and you do it anyway, even though you are so intimidated, you know how many cold calls I did in high heels in whatever weather from I'd go to a park, an office park, and I just start knocking on doors. And I got all kinds of crazy business. People never called on them, but I did it. And you know why? I wanted that car. I wanted to get out of the beater, not thinking in terms of, hey, if I just work really hard and make more money, I could buy another car. No, it was like, no, I'm going to do it. That was just my thinking back in the day. This is what happens. Our conduct changes with our conviction, and the action that's behind it changes everything. And it turns into confidence, because the doing precedes the confidence. You're never going to get confident before you do something. If you sit and wait for confidence, you're going to be waiting a long time. It's like motivation and confidence. They're two best buds. They sit on the sidelines and say, you know what? It's not going to show up until you do. They're two best friends, but they don't show up until you do. When they see you show up, they're going to come a knocking. Here comes your motivation. Here comes your confidence. Get her done. Get her done. Tony Robbins has a whole different thing on confidence, but his is really good, and I think it's worth kind of going through. He has 6 things. But, Tony Robbins, you might say he's a little bit confident. Yeah. That's one confident dude. Do you know his backstory? How he was like, washing his clothes in his bathtub and living in this just crappy little apartment, and he had nothing. But he showed up and he kept going until things finally started to go. His story because of the story that it was, because of what happened with the confidence that he brought in as he did things that he didn't think he could do, that's what created his whole life. That's what created the whole trajectory of how he lived his life. I mean, this man is uber wealthy and he has millions of followers all around the world. He's written, I don't know, probably 20 New York Times best-selling books. He's done all the things, but he did the work, and the work is what formed his message. When you do the work, you get to talk about what you did. You know, I've shared with you before my story on how I got my catering gig, right? So here I am in my 20s with my other waitress friend who I dragged in. Come on, let's start a business. Why not? You know, I know, let's do this. We don't know what the heck we're doing, but we do it anyway. And from one connection to the other connection, we found ourselves auditioning with 6 high-end, big-time experienced caterers there in Newport Beach. And we end up getting the Irvine Company. If you don't know who they are, a big real estate company in Newport Beach. And that was a big deal because it was every cent. I worked my fingers to the bone. I just worked my tail off. But you know what? You know what I learned from all of that? I learned you can get almost anything that you want simply by applying yourself, simply by living by conviction. Keep talking, keep going, keep putting action behind it, and watch what happens. Watch what happens. And that is right there. You know, my conviction would have been completely worthless had I not done something, had I not knocked on that one door, had I not asked for it, had I not said, can I try out too? It wouldn't have worked. But it worked because I worked and I didn't stop. It was, you know, that crazy momentum thing again. Momentum's fabulous. Grab it. Knock those dominoes down. But Tony Robbins, same deal, you know, I mean, mine is at a much lower level, but I'm telling you, Tony Robbins, his whole message is about what he did in his life and how he overcame it all. What he found out, he immersed himself in learning. This is why that's part of the, what we're doing with the Hot Melt 30, you know, reading every day and all of that, you know, all the things. But his first thing was, you got to know your values. You know, what are your values? What do you stand for? What are you about? Who are you? Where does your identity come from? When we know our values and we know who we are, what we are about, and what we're here to do, and remember, purpose changes as we change and as our circumstances and seasons of life change, then we get it, you know? We're here on purpose for purpose. We get that. And we know who we are because we understand that we're the daughter of the King, the apple of his eye. And we were created and here on this earth at this time for a reason. That's a value. And it's a huge, strong value. It's a why. Even if you don't know what the why is, it is a why. And it's a why for you to pursue. Because there's no way that you're here right now just taking up space. There's no way. Why would that be? Why would that be? Created on purpose for purpose. I don't want you to ever forget that. You're so precious and so important. And I'm so glad you're here. You know, if I feel like that, can you imagine how God feels about you? Can you imagine? Number 2, you gotta practice positive thinking. Now, I hate that positive thinking stuff. But it is a practice, isn't it? It's a practice to shift your thoughts, to build new pathways in your brain, to make a decision that what you're going to be focusing on is the thing that you want to expand. And if you're focused on all the negativity, if you're focused on all the garbage, man, that's what's going to show up. Because your reticular activating system is saying, oh, you want garbage? No problem. Boom, 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 boom. That's the big trash truck coming, by the way. Boom, 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 boom. I don't want trash trucks in my dreams at all. None of it. None of it. I want the warm fuzzies. I want my relationships to be warm and juicy and good and fun, building others up and being built up in turn. Friendships that are that way. Relationship with Mark, my children, you, That is what I want. That, all of that. And I projected that onto our Hot Melt Sprint group, by the way. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see it big and full and juicy and people having each other's backs. I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be about the community. And look what we have. We've got that. Isn't that so cool? These are the things that we get to do when we start to turn on our conviction and allow confidence to take it all the way. It takes it all the way. When we decide that we are going to think about the right things and stop, believing that the old keys are going to open a new door, then we're going to find ourselves in the place of really embracing this idea of practicing different thoughts. Because our thoughts will predict what we do in the future. They will predict success, and they will predict what you're going to get back. They just will. So getting stuck in the negative loop, well, you're going to get more of the same. And I don't want that for you. That's why I'm coming back to this whole thing. The other thing is you got to accept your emotions, because you know what? Nobody says you have to deny your emotions. You have to accept them. And when we accept our emotion, we understand that we are emotional. We are feeling. But we also need to understand, is this even appropriate? Do I need to put this in the experience file? Is it time for this to go? How many times am I going to relay that same old saw, that same old story, and relive and recapture all those old feelings again and again? That is an Oregon Trail in your brain you don't want, right? We know that. But accepting your emotions isn't denying them. It's accepting who you are. I'm feeling a little blue. I'm feeling a little bad. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling awful or whatever. I'm having a hard time. Okay. That's cool. Now, what are you going to do about it next? It doesn't give you the permission slip to go wallow. It gives you, it's accepting your emotions. But then the next thing is, now what's next, right? We all have that choice. And I know, I've been on the floor with the rug in front of my face, crying my eyes out. I've been there. I've been in dark spots. I've been on antidepressants. I've gone to the shrink. I've done all that stuff. And you know what? At the end of the day, it still required that I had to get up and do something. And when I saw all the money, all the time, all the energy, all spent on sitting there regurgitating all of this stuff, I said, where am I going? I'm working at Nordstrom, hanging up skanky bikinis that people don't have the decency to leave their underwear on for. TMI, I know. But that was my life. I'd just sold my business. I just lost my dad. All of this stuff was going on. And I was just having a really hard time of it. And I made a decision that the next thing that I'm going to do, I've done big things. I can do it again. I made a decision to get up. I made a decision to start taking care of myself better. I made a decision to start working out and to start eating better. We make decisions all the time. And when we accept our emotions, we also deal with them. And we also say, the next thing is the next thing is the next thing. Because when we do that, we're putting ourselves, on a path, not just sitting there and going through it all over again. And, I'm a side note here and disclaimer. If you need to see someone, go see someone. I'm not telling you not to see someone. But I'm also telling you that the responsibility for your life is yours and yours alone. You have the option at any time, to change your mind about things, to shift it a little bit. That's not me saying, don't see someone, don't take medication. That's not me saying that at all. But you have to still take responsibility for your life. A pill's not going to change it, and either is a therapist, without you participating fully. Number 4 is change your physiology. Now, I love this. This is so interesting. I've shared this before too, how our physiology shifts when we do certain things. I just posted it in the, what was the name of the group? The Hot Melt Sprint group, how your different emotions cause, and different things that you do cause these different body chemicals to emit. How cool is that? Dopamine and serotonin. When you exercise, you get a hit of endorphins, and all these different things help to create a different you, because when you've got these hormones coursing through your body, you feel differently. What do you think these antidepressants do? You know, they stir up the serotonin. Well, you can also do that yourself. You can bring it on. You know, there's certain things that you can do. But when you change your physiology, when you decide to not, oh, it's so sad and I'm so bummed. You know, when we do that, we start to shrink, get smaller, everything goes down, as opposed to standing up and putting your hands on your hip, putting your head high, and standing like Wonder Woman. I want you to go watch Amy Cuddy, Cuddy, TED Talk on your body's physiology and how your body language can certainly change so many things in the way you think about yourself. When I did my first Full Bloom, it wasn't Full Bloom back then. I think it was Take Back Your Life. But when I did my first workshop, that was one of the things that we learned was to stand, do your Wonder Woman pose and stand. When you stand like that, your physiology changes. And we can change our physiology simply by the way we stand, the way we think, our breathing. All of these things play into it. So when we start getting into these funks, you know, there's a way out. You know, you're never trapped by a funk. A funk might try to creep up on you and say, oh, let me just take away all of your joy and make you think about all these sad things. Change it. Just shifty, changey, do it. Because that enough is enough. And if you've had enough, I want to see some pinkies up. Pinkies up. We can be the women we want to be simply by making that decision. Communication skills enter into this as well. Your communication is important. So I posted something else in the Hot Melt Sprint group today. You know, you make me feel, no, how about I feel icky if when XYZ happens, taking responsibility for your own feelings and not laying it on somebody else. That's convenient victimhood, in my opinion. It is. It's convenient. And you don't have to take responsibility for yourself. It's everyone else's fault. Well, my parents, well, my teacher wasn't nice to me. Well, they were mean to me. My teacher Spock pinched me and smelled like alcohol and cigarettes in 4th grade. And it was terrible. It was awful. And so here I am. Come on. We are so much bigger than our circumstances, aren't we? Yes, it all happened, and put it in the experience file. What'd you learn from it? Are you ready to move on? Are you ready to have the life you want to have? Or do you want to stay there in the pity zone? Do you? No, no way. Sarah's got herself in the hot melt pose. Hands on hips and pinkies up. Boop. I want to see that. We will in September. And the last thing is that you need to do, if you are to maintain your confidence, it's really simple. You reevaluate and you analyze. Back to the experience file. Just always look at, you know, is this working for me anymore? Or is this kind of out? Or gosh, it was great while it lasted. Or do I need to let it go? You know, do I need to let this go? What do I need to do in order to hold on to this? You need to create more of it every day. Every single day is a new day, a fresh day to step into confidence simply by doing the things that you know are going to support your goals, support the vibrancy in the life that you want to lead, and to get you to the place where you're finally saying, this is really great. You know, this is really great. I have to show you this. My quote of the day here on my little calendar is, you are a victim of the rules you play by. Oh, wait, no, I blew it, sorry. You are a victim by the rules you live by. What are the rules you live by? Are you confident? Are you convicted? Are you that woman who lives in her integrity, stands in her integrity, and moves forward every single day? Are you that woman? Confident and ready for the next thing? Well, I'm going to just say that you are. I believe you are. And if you don't see it right now, it's because you haven't chosen it right now. I'm asking you to make a choice. Make a decision for yourself, not against yourself, for yourself, because you're worth it. You're worth the time, you're worth the energy. And you know what else? It's the expectation that God has of you. Why would he create you if you're not going to live your best life? Anyway, that's all for today. That's enough, certainly. And I'm loving that you're showing up. Thanks, Sarah, so much. And Vanessa, Patsy, hold your head up. Yep, remember that song? I remember it. I remember it. Pinkies up. Love you guys. Peace be with you.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.